Let me help you break down DKA and ketosis or ketogenesis. Now, don't allow anybody to tell you that when you fast, you'll get into DKA if you are diabetic. Understand this, that when you're using diabetic drugs, there is a group of drugs that are called sulfonylureas, the likes of glibenclamide or gliclazide. There's also another group of diabetic therapy that is called insulin. These are the drugs that can take you into hypoglycemia, and therefore when you're on those drugs, it is hard for you to fast because the two will combine to take you even deeper into hypoglycemia, and that can be dangerous for you. So you can talk to your doctor to help you lower the doses as you start your intermittent fasting, and as you walk into prolonged periodic fasts, you should be clear of those drugs. So that should be noted. Now, diabetic ketoacidosis, or just ketoacidosis in general, basically means high ketone bodies in your blood, which basically ketone bodies are acidic, and when they are acidic, it means they lower the pH of blood, and that means your blood will go into acidity. That's a very dangerous condition for anybody to be in. So DKA or ketoacidosis is not a good condition. It's actually an emergency condition, and it has to be handled in a hospital. However, these ketone bodies are actually coming from fat cells when you start burning fat cells. Now you'll realize most of the people who get into ketoacidosis are actually diabetic. 98% of the population that gets into ketoacidosis are diabetic, and that's why it's actually called diabetic ketoacidosis. And why is that the cause? Now remember this, that if you're type 1 diabetes, your insulin levels are actually very low, near zero, or you don't have a functional pancreas, so you have insulin deficiency. Even in type 2 diabetics who have actually worn out their pancreas, they have very low insulin production, and is not even adequate to help you pump blood glucose into storage, into the cells for either utilization or storage. So that means your blood sugars will keep on rising. And this is a harmful case, because once they keep on rising, they start hurting your system in general. They cause inflammation, they occlude blood vessels, they cause kidney damage, heart attack, brain destruction, and nerve destruction. We don't need that. So this has to be brought down. But you don't have something to bring it down, because insulin comes in to bring these sugars down back to normal, and even lower than normal. But now you don't have insulin. So these blood sugars keep on rising because you're still consuming the carbohydrates. And as they rise, they become more harmful. So what does the body do? The body senses that the cells are actually starving, so they don't have glucose. The muscle cells that need glucose for activity don't have the glucose. Yes, so the body senses you are in a starvation mode. Yet in your blood, you have high glucose levels that can be utilized, but it's not being utilized. So that is one form of energy. But now, since your body thinks you're starving, it will actually produce glucagon and the counter-regulatory hormones, the adrenalines, the cortisol. And these hormones will actually go to these organs and start burning fat to convert it into ketone bodies for energy for you, because it thinks you're starving. So we have to seek another alternative energy from glucose, or else this human being will starve. So now you have high levels of glucose in blood, and now you have high content of ketone coming into your blood again. So you have two sources of energy that the body is not utilizing. Now, these ketone bodies, remember, they are acidic, and they will lower the pH of blood, which is a very dangerous state, and that's the metabolic acidosis. So now at DKA, you have high glucose, and you also have high ketone bodies in the system, because the body thinks you're starving, because the glucose is not being pumped into these cells for utilization. On the other hand, ketogenesis or ketosis is actually an alternative way or energy source of the system. Now you've stopped yourself from eating carbohydrates through fasting. Therefore, glucose in blood has been utilized, and the levels of glucose are going down, even lower. And your insulin levels are very low. So what does the body do? The body realizes there is no glucose in blood in the cells. Therefore, it turns to fat cells to break it down to give you alternative energy to the glucose, because you don't have glucose now. Remember, in the other case, you have high glucose. But in this one, you have low glucose, you also have low insulin. So the body turns alternatively to the fat cells to burn it to give you ketone bodies, which are actually utilized by the system. They are the healthy energy sources, only that we don't get into them, because the body needs a lot of energy to burn fat, and it requires a lot of discipline and commitment to burn fat to get healthy energy sources, because good things don't come easy. But the body appreciates glucose because, one, we consume a lot of carbohydrates, so that's what the body is exposed to. Number two, glucose is the easiest way to break down to get instant energy. So the brain likes that. And then it gives you dopamine hormone, which is a feel-good hormone. So you get addicted to these carbohydrates. So our exposure to carbohydrates is actually what is setting us up. So we cannot burn fat, we always burn carbohydrates. So now when you've done away with the glucose in the blood, now you're turning to fat cells, you are converting them to healthy ketone bodies that will actually help your system to recover from inflammation, from the pains, from detoxification, and all these harmful metabolic conditions. That is what we want. So these two are not the same. DKA and ketosis are not the same. DKA, two energy sources that are harmful to the system, all of them being unutilized. In ketosis, you have low glucose, you have low insulin, now you burn fat as an alternative energy source. So don't be confused with the two. Keep on fasting, because fasting will take you into ketosis and not DKA. And learn.